Hi guys, my name is Karthik and I am from executeautomation.com and welcome to part 27 of our BDD video series. And in this video, we are not exactly going to talk about Specflow because as you can see for the past 5 videos, we are being mix and matching both the Specflow and Nunit a lot. And in here, we are going to talk about passing a parameter to test method from Nunit console runner. And this is really helpful while we start working with Specflow as well, because there are some situations where we might need these kind of features. So before watching this part, I would request you to watch part 25 and part 26, since this part is going to be a complete continuation of that part. All right, so let's get started. Passing parameters. Starting Nunit 3.4, there is an most awaited option introduced for Nunit console runner, which is passing parameters to the test method or methods via a command line interface using --params attribute. And this is really helpful because while you want to perform some kind of operation like passing a parameter from a console runner or a command line interface to the test method, there was no such option available. So we can use this params option to perform that operation. As you can see the screenshot below, this is the one which I have took from the documentation of Nunit console runner. It says a param is a test parameter specified in the form of name is equal to value, where multiple parameters may be specified as well, separated by a semicolon or by repeating the --params options multiple times. So you can do that either by specifying a semicolon or by passing the --params multiple times. So where is this really useful actually? So consider a scenario something like this. Let's say we have a test application with multiple browsers and we somehow have to parameterize the browser type like Firefox and Chrome and IE, where if you have seen the screenshot below, this is the same code that we were working on in our Selenium parallel test in our same video series, right? So we used to call this method choose driver instance, where we pass the browser type, and within this browser type we just pass the type of browser. Maybe it's a Chrome or Firefox or IE or something like that. So these are programmatically called within the test method, but there is no way that we can specify this browser type from outside of our test methods, something like from a command line interface. But the invent of this --params option of Nunit 3.4 and above, we can now pass the browser type as a parameter to our framework, and this will start executing. So then we can say that we can do via a command line interface and pass the parameter to the whole framework to run the test based on the parameter that we passed. So now your whole framework will start executing based on the parameter that you are passing in from the command line interface. So it's really cool. So the code base that we're going to use for this demonstration is going to be from this github.com/executeautomation/selenium parallel sample. So this is the repo which I'm going to be using for this whole demonstration. We'll be modifying the code a little bit and then perform the operation to show you how you can pass the test in parameter. Right, so let's get started again and see how things work. So for that, I'm going to flip to Visual Studio. So this is the same code that we were working in our previous video series, and this is the Selenium parallel test project over here, and this is coming from our github/executeautomation/selenium parallel sample project, right? So basically you can see that currently it has a base class, it has a key code driver in it, and it has a hook.cs where there is a browser type as an enumerated value, and the browser type is being passed as a hooks constructor, and there is an initialize test method where the browser type is being passed to perform the operation of choosing the browser and opening it, and based on that it will run the test for us. You can see there is a Chrome test and there is a Firefox test which performs the operation of navigating to the browser and performing a search for the google.com website, right? This is pretty simple, and the reason how it's working with the Firefox and Chrome is because we are passing the browser type somewhere here in the base of the constructor of the hook. So basically this hook has a constructor which passes in the browser type, right? Pretty straightforward and simple project. We have been discussing about this a lot in our previous video series. So again guys, if you feel like this code is kind of cumbersome or kind of different, maybe it's not so straightforward, you can just watch the previous video series. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change a little bit this code. this choose driver instance where I'm passing in the browser type, instead of passing in by this hooks constructor, I'm going to modify this code a little bit. I'm really not going to be using the constructor this time because it's throwing an error because we're not really passing in the default constructor, which is this one. So I'm going to remove this guy completely here, and the Chrome test also, I'm going to remove this. There we go. And now if you see the Firefox test, what I'm going to basically do is for the browser test, I'm not going to really modify anything in here. I don't even really have to have a constructor this time. I'm going to fully remove this, guys, completely. And now if you come to the hooks.cs, this is where the code is going to be changing a little bit. What I'm going to basically do is, instead of passing in a parameter from the initialize test method over here, I am going to call a little code change this time. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to call what is called as a test context class of Nunit. If you see what is this, it's a Nunit frameworks class. So test context dot, there is something called as parameters. Basically this parameters is a test parameters type, and if you use the get method, this basically is like a indexer where you can specify what kind of parameter they're going to get in from the particular command line interface. So if I say get something like browser, right, it is going to return if you pass the Nunit console as browser as a parameter, right? So I'm going to say browser, and we'll just do a little test and see how things work. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the browser here, and then I'm going to pass the console.writeLine here, and then I'm going to quickly just write the browser is something like this, and here I'm just going to get the browser which I'm getting in as a parameter for this code. So I'm going to build this solution a little bit. Again, guys, this is Selenium parallel test, so if we change anything in here, this is going to remove our real essence of that particular repo. So basically I will not be using this particular repo this time, but I will be changing the project name a little bit, but just to showcase how we are basically going to use this parameter. I'm using the existing code base right now. So we're getting some error. Let's see what is this error. Let's quickly fix that before, oops, sorry, there's a one there. All right, now if I try to build this solution, it works fine. So if I go to the Chrome test and if I run the selected test, it should basically open the Chrome browser and perform the search, and the test got passed, right? So everything is pretty cool. And right now I'm going to run the same test in our command line interface. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to this particular project, and I'm going to hop over to the bin debug, and this is the Selenium parallel test or DLL file. So I'm going to just copy this guy. So basically this is the Nunit 3.6. So I'm going to make use of this time, and I'm going to go over to the command prompt, and I'm going to call the Nunit console.exe, and then I'm going to call the Params, and here I'm going to say browser. So you can see that the browser is nothing but the value that I'm actually expecting to be coming in my hooks over here, right? So I'm going to take that is equal to, let's say I'm going to say this as Chrome for now, right? And then I'm going to paste this DLL file I just copied. So I'm going to hit enter. All right, it is taking the Chrome, which is okay. I get the default browser is going to be Chrome every time. So you can see that the browser is Chrome, right? So this information is basically coming from our code over here, right? So whatever parameter that we pass in is basically coming in. And now if I change this to maybe, let's say instead of Chrome, I'm going to say something like never developed browser, and hit enter. So there is no such browser exists in the world which is named as never developed browser, but you can see that we are going to get that being printed over here. The browser is never developed browser. So you can see that from the command line interface we are trying to pass a parameter to our code, right? And now what I'm going to do is basically you got the idea, right? So this is how we get the actual parameters from a command line interface to our code base. Right now everything is cool. So I'm basically going to close this project. It's not going to be saved for now because I'm not going to be showing that. Basically I modified the same code a little bit in a different project name called as Selenium and Param, and you can see that there is a browser type again, but here in the initialize test, basically what I'm doing is I'm just getting the browser, and then I'm going to store in the browser type, and then I'm parsing to the enum because the browser type is actually a strongly type over here, so I need to parse the value, and I have to store this in the underscore browser type variable, and then I'm going to pass in the choose driver instance. That's it. This is the only change that I made, and then I just made a little change to the test so that we can have a differentiation this time. So you can see for the browser test I have the Google test, and then there is an execute automation test. Pretty much the same thing, but only thing I made a change is in the hooks where I'm just getting in the value from the parameter, right? I'm gonna save this, guys. I'm gonna build the solution, and if you go to the project and if you hop over to the bin folder, and let's copy this particular DLL file, and let's go to the same Nunit 3.6. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all these values that I have just entered, and I'm going to just say Chrome, and then I'm going to paste this DLL file, and if I hit enter, this time you can see that basically there will be two tests being executed. One is for the execute automation, and you can see that execute automation test is being done, and then it is going to open and going to perform the search on the Google, right, both on the Chrome browser. So this is basically Chrome browser, as we can see, right? And now if I again parameterize this to maybe Firefox, something like this, and if I hit enter, you can see that this time it is not going to run the test on Chrome, rather it is opening the Firefox browser. As you can see, it is running the test on a Firefox browser rather the Chrome browser. So you can see that we are parameterizing our whole framework to run based on the type of browser that we are passing in as a parameter from the command line interface. And this is really important because while we start working with Jenkins or something like that, we can make use of this parameter a lot because we can parameterize the browser type and we can run the test in a multiple browser regardless of the code change that you're going to make. And you can see that this time for the run setting, there is a little more option exposed, something like the test parameter dictionary. It says that it's a system.collection.generic dictionary of string, and the test browser is a browser type is a Firefox. That's it. So these are the two different things being added along with this execution while we pass the -- param variable out there, right? So that's it, guys. This is how we can make use of the parameterization in our code. And if you ask me where this code is currently residing, currently the whole code, whatever we discussed in this video, is actually sitting in our execute automation GitHub, and you can go and hop over to the repositories, and you can see there is something called as Selenium and Params. So basically you can go over here and you can see that the complete code, whichever we discussed in this particular video, is already available in our GitHub. So you can just pull this code and start using it and see how things work. So basically all you have to do is call this command line interface and pass this parameter as a browser. It's called Firefox or Chrome or whatever browser you like, and the test will run. So that's it, guys. Once again, thank you very much for watching this video and have a great day.